What if, in less than 60 minutes, everything you believed about tank warfare was shattered? Picture a dawn when not just weapons, but entire doctrines and reputations are swept aside. Decades of hard-won battlefield wisdom dissolving in the wake of a single, decisive advance. On the Ugledar front in early November, year 2025, this moment arrived with chilling precision. The T-14 Armata did not emerge by chance. Its appearance was the culmination of months of careful plotting and strategic misdirection, not a gamble or desperate maneuver. For decades, analysts have dissected the enemy's defensive networks, rooted in 20th century logic, bristling with anti-tank missiles, ringed with complex minefields. Yet beneath the surface, all these layers depended on predictability. As the defenders settled in and exhausted their reserves, their positions grew static. Their countermeasures, once innovative, became routine. They trusted their assumptions, until the morning those assumptions failed. This pattern has played out across military history. In World War I, the French built the Maginot Line, believing solid fortifications would halt any German advance. Similarly, in the Arab-Israeli wars, both sides relied on entrenched armor and predictable lines. Each time, new tactics and breakthroughs shattered the old logic. The morning at Ugledar echoed these past lessons. The moment you rest on what worked yesterday, you open yourself to devastation today. At first light on November 4th, the tide turned. A new kind of weapon, self-aware, connected, and ruthlessly coordinated, rolled out of the mist. The T-14 did not simply press forward. It erupted onto the scene, dozens strong, each machine moving with almost unnatural unity. In under 1 hour, the rules of armored warfare and the myth of Western invincibility were rewritten before stunned observers. The T-14's technological leap turned yesterday's fortifications into liabilities. Its real-time battlefield intelligence sharing, its resilience under fire, and its flawless cooperation with loitering drones and precision artillery made traditional anti-tank defenses irrelevant. What once seemed formidable now revealed a fatal blind spot. Consider the fate of the German Tiger tanks in Normandy, year 1944. Though powerful on paper, they were ambushed in the bocage by nimble Allied teams using new weapons and tactics. The lesson: every fortress, every invincible machine becomes a coffin if the enemy redefines the game. The T-14's debut was the 21st century's answer to that old truth. For military leaders and policymakers across the globe, this was not just a setback in hardware or tactics. It was a blow to the very heart of current military thought, a warning that decades of doctrine and billions in investment could now be swept away by a single integrated system. The T-14 was no longer just a tank. It became the symbol and spearhead of a new era of warfare. Let us pull back the curtain on the T-14 Armata's first battle. What made its debut so decisive, and why its true impact is only starting to send shockwaves through the corridors of power worldwide. The road to this moment was paved with secrecy, innovation, and a willingness to break every rule of armored engagement. To understand how the T-14 overturned the balance, we must examine the buildup, the deception, and the brutal clarity of its attack. Why did supposedly invincible, old-school defenses collapse so quickly when confronted by Russia's T-14 offensive? The answer is not simply overwhelming force, but months of painstaking intelligence and a web of deception spun with surgical precision. Every reconnaissance mission, every intercepted signal, every faint radio hiss was part of a plan to mislead and misdirect. By the time the real attack began, Russian planners had charted every enemy bunker, minefield, and ambush, and ensured their adversaries were watching shadows rather than substance. This art of deception is as old as war itself. During Operation Fortitude in World War II, the Allies created entire fake armies, using inflatable tanks and false radio chatter to mislead German intelligence before D-Day. Similarly, Russian forces in 2025 used simulated buildup on other fronts, electronic countermeasures, and even social media misinformation to convince the defenders their focus should be elsewhere. This psychological manipulation set the stage for surprise and maximum shock. The defending lines, though formidable at a glance, were relics of the 20th century. Their layouts were predictable, their anti-tank weapons aging, and their command structures inflexible. What had once been their pride, the heaviest guns and most advanced missiles, were positioned in static kill zones, clearly visible to modern sensors, and easily bypassed by fluid, 21st-century tactics. Under the cover of a moonless night, T-14 formations gathered in absolute silence. Not a single radio burst betrayed their movement. Electronic camouflage masked their signatures, while carefully coordinated feints drew defenders in the wrong direction. When dawn finally broke through the choking fog, the defenders' focus was fractured, and their initiative already lost. That fog was no coincidence. Russian planners weaponized the weather, timing their assault to coincide with the thickest veil, which blinded enemy drones and grounded air support. Russian units, hyper-connected and ready, pushed forward exactly when confusion peaked. When the attack began, the defenders unleashed their most expensive missiles and triggered their deepest minefields, only to watch them fail. The T-14's armor shrugged off everything thrown at it. The shock was palpable. Decades-old weapons and doctrines, once the bedrock of armored warfare, were simply irrelevant now. This operation's setup offers a brutal lesson. For any modern military, missing the vulnerabilities that doomed these defenders could mean repeating their disaster. On today's battlefields, clinging to outdated doctrines and static defenses is a recipe for defeat, and possibly annihilation. Consider the fate of the French army in year 1940. Despite having more tanks than Germany, their lack of coordination and reliance on static defense lines proved fatal. Similarly, defenders at Ugledar had numbers and firepower, but the absence of adaptability and networked response doomed them. Yet, the decisive factor was not only surprise or misdirection. What truly shattered the old order was the revolutionary technology and doctrine behind the T-14. Its networked systems, seamless drone integration, and real-time artillery coordination changed the rules, forever redefining what it means to dominate the modern battlefield. To understand why this mattered so much, you have to see how the T-14 system rewrote every rule. It was not just a tank, it was the spear point of a new kind of war. Can a single machine rewrite the psychology of war? When the T-14 Armata first appeared, it did not merely challenge the rules, it incinerated them. Its most shocking feature was its unmanned turret and armored crew capsule. The ancient equation of tank combat was overturned. The crew, once the weakest link, became nearly invulnerable. Even a direct hit that would have meant certain death in any other tank was now simply shrugged off, leaving the crew unscathed and composed. This invincibility was proven, not promised. As wave after wave of anti-tank missiles and shells screamed toward the Armata, its Afghanit active protection system responded instantly. Not a single missile, zero, penetrated. Decades of development and countless billions spent on advanced munitions were rendered useless that morning. Enemy gunners watched in disbelief as their most trusted weapons vanished, intercepted by unseen defenses. The effect was instant and profound. For the first time, tank crews fought with the confidence of those who truly expected to survive. Think of the psychological impact of the British Mark I tank in the trenches of World War I. Soldiers ran in terror from its armor, but it was still vulnerable to artillery and breakdowns. The Armata's arrival was another leap. Now, the machine not only terrified by presence, but by true invulnerability. This changed the very mindset of those inside and outside its hull. But protection was only the surface. The T-14's true revolution lay in information dominance. Each Armata was one node in a vast, invisible network, a battle management system that fused live data from multispectral sensors, circling drones, satellites overhead, and allied vehicles nearby. Crews, cocooned deep inside, could see the entire battlefield in 3 dimensions. Enemy positions, threats, and solutions appeared on their screens, prioritized and ready. For commanders, guesswork disappeared. The fog of war lifted. Tanks, artillery, and drones moved as a single organism, coordinating in real time. Enemy strongpoints were not just attacked, they were erased before defenders could react. The old doctrines, built over generations, dissolved overnight. Enemy morale collapsed as their shots bounced off, their ambushes failed, their hiding spots already mapped and targeted before the first shell landed. Inside the Armata, soldiers experienced something new: decisive confidence, a tempo never seen in armored warfare. They maneuvered with boldness, exposing themselves to risks that once spelled disaster. The core of victory shifted, no longer brute force, but the seamless union of protection, intelligence, and total battlefield awareness. Yet the lesson ran deeper than hardware. The real threat was to tradition itself. Cling to old doctrines, and it is not just your machines that will fail. It is your soldiers' will, your strategies, your very lines of defense that will shatter. But the world was watching, and no adversary intended to stay obsolete for long. What followed was a scramble to adapt, or risk irrelevance on tomorrow's battlefield. What happens when tanks, drones, and artillery no longer act as separate pieces, but fight as a single, thinking organism? The chaos of war recedes, replaced by a merciless algorithm that hunts, adapts, and strikes before the enemy can even respond. The result is a battlefield where every second counts, and only one side controls the clock. The T-14 Armata was transformed from a mere armored spearhead into the living core of a unified war machine. Each tank was both predator and nerve center, ceaselessly transmitting and absorbing streams of targeting and surveillance data. Crews were not just enclosed in steel, they were wired into the digital bloodstream of the entire force, their senses amplified and extended far beyond the battlefield's horizon. Before the first shot, Arlen-30 drones fanned out overhead, scanning every contour and hollow in the earth, exposing hidden bunkers and camouflaged armor invisible to the naked eye. Their live feeds merged instantly with the Armata's own sensors and satellite intelligence, forming a constantly shifting three-dimensional map. Armata units flagged threats, anti-tank squads, command posts, buried assets, and the data radiated outward, each enemy tagged for immediate elimination. With a single encrypted signal, artillery batteries unleashed precision barrages while attack helicopters dove on high-value targets. There was no lag, no waiting for clearance. The response was automatic. As soon as any hostile appeared on the network, the closest weapon system engaged, sometimes in seconds, often before the opposition could even fire a shot. This digital coordination extended far beyond firepower. Logistics and recovery vehicles, built on the same Armata chassis, advanced in formation with the frontline tanks. Ammunition was delivered, repairs done, and fuel restored, all under constant sensor protection. The offensive pressed forward without interruption. For defenders, there was no moment to regroup, no pause in the assault, a ceaseless, adaptive steel tide. Every counter the defenders attempted, drone swarms, Western-supplied ambush tanks, concentrated artillery, crumbled against the network's unified response. Old tactics, based on scattered information and slow communications, failed in real time. The enemy watched their best weapons neutralized, their strategies unraveled before their eyes. With each moment, their confidence and cohesion drained away. This was not simply a triumph of superior hardware or firepower. It was a paradigm shift. War as a self-aware system, every element sharing vision, reacting instantly, and acting in perfect synchrony. For militaries worldwide, the warning was stark. Those who failed to develop, integrate, or counter such systems did not merely risk defeat. They faced irrelevance, their doctrines and arsenals reduced to relics overnight. But the true consequences echoed far beyond a single battle. The Armata's debut signaled a sweeping transformation in how wars would be fought, how power would be measured, and who would shape the future of conflict itself. Now let's trace how this technological revolution reshaped not just the outcome of one campaign, but the entire global military balance. The old rules of war are shattered. Armies now face a stark ultimatum: adapt or be swept aside. The Ugledar breakthrough was more than a victory on the battlefield. It ignited a chain reaction. Enemy defenses fractured, command networks unraveled, and panic rippled through governments and buyers of Western arms. For many, this was the moment the future arrived, ruthless and irreversible. The Armata's debut upended the hierarchy of military power. Its uncrewed turret and armored crew capsule made classic anti-tank weapons almost useless. But the real upheaval came from its digital integration. The T-14 became the nerve center of a living network, linking drones, artillery, and infantry into a single, coordinated organism. With every engagement, the T-14's advantage grew. Its crew wielded a panoramic view, spotting camouflaged missile teams, hidden armor, and shifting infantry through a seamless web of live sensors. Decisions that once took minutes happened in mere seconds. On that fog-shrouded morning, Western tank crews realized their advanced doctrines and vehicles had become relics overnight. Disarray spread fast. Morale collapsed in enemy units. Operators abandoned positions, leaving behind Western equipment worth millions. Footage of surrendered tanks and breached lines went viral, shattering confidence not just at the front, but in ministries and arms expos worldwide. Russia seized the initiative and, for the first time in decades, recast itself as the leading innovator in military affairs. Its rivals, stunned, were forced to question everything: training, procurement, even the very ideas that built their armies. The warning was direct: adapt or risk not just defeat, but the loss of decades of security, technological edge, and global standing. For anyone guiding or investing in military power, the lesson could not be clearer. The era of isolated platforms is dead. Only those who master fully integrated intelligent systems will endure and dictate the terms of tomorrow's defense. But shockwaves from Ugledar were only the beginning. As the world scrambled to react, deeper challenges and unforeseen risks emerged. If your defense strategies still center on lone heroes or outdated war machines, you are setting yourself up for failure. The era of the solo supertank has ended. The myth of the invincible individual machine shattered on that cold November morning, replaced by something far more formidable: the rise of intelligent, interconnected systems. What unfolded was not the story of a single tank's glory, but the decisive power of a synchronized network. Humans and machines fused into a unified fighting organism, operating at a tempo old doctrines could not even comprehend. The T-14 Armata was never simply a tank. It was the nucleus of a digital ecosystem, a battlefield web where every drone, every artillery piece, every armored vehicle exchanged information at speeds that no human could match alone. Not even the most brilliant commander could have orchestrated what this connected force achieved. The real advantage did not lie in heavier armor or a larger cannon, but in a battle space where every element was linked, every threat detected instantly, and every action accelerated by live data. Those who still fantasize about a lone tank charging into enemy lines must face a hard truth. The T-14 did not win because it was indestructible. It prevailed because it was never isolated. Its survival and its striking power came from being part of a shifting, adaptive organism. The blend of human decision-making and machine calculation, sensors, algorithms, and precision firepower transformed what it meant to fight and to win. Now, the stakes could not be higher. If you build your defense budgets, alliances, and battlefield plans around yesterday's icons, single platforms, static doctrines, or isolated acts of valor, you are not only wasting resources, you are risking the fate of armies, the sovereignty of nations, and the lives of all who count on your leadership. The price of denial will be tallied not only in lost billions, but in lost wars, lost credibility, and lost futures. Ask yourself, are you preparing for the conflict you hope to fight, or the one that has already begun? Will you adapt, or be outmaneuvered by those who recognize that the future belongs not to the strongest, but to the best connected? The answer is unavoidable. Tomorrow's battlefields will be claimed by those who master networks, not by those who cling to lone machines. Looking forward, The true challenge is not merely technological, it is mental. Can you let go of the old certainties about dominance, survival, and command? In the new era, the ability to adapt, connect, and react as a system will determine not only who wins, but who survives at all. Let's look at concrete steps any military or policymaker should consider if they want to avoid the fate of Ugledar's defenders. First, invest in integrated battle management systems, not just isolated upgrades. The Israeli Army's experience with the Trophy Active Protection System on their Merkava tanks showed how critical layered, network defenses can be. But the lesson of Armata is that even protection must be tied to live data and multi-domain coordination. Every unit should be a node, not a silo. Second, accelerate cross-domain training. In the aftermath of the Gulf War, American forces realized the value of joint exercises. Air, land, and sea units learned to share data and synchronize strikes. In today's environment, this means not just exercises, but daily routines. Commanders, drone pilots, tank crews, and cyber specialists drilling together, building a shared digital language. Third, modernize procurement and doctrine. Instead of years-long debates over single platforms, adopt spiral development, rolling out incremental upgrades every few months. NATO's Smart Defense Initiative offers a blueprint. Pool resources, standardize digital protocols, and reward commanders who experiment and adapt. Fourth, don't underestimate psychological adaptation. The French Army's shock at Blitzkrieg in year 1940 was not just about tanks, it was about tempo and mindset. Today, militaries must train for speed of decision, not just accuracy. Virtual reality combat simulators, live fire drills, and wargaming against AI opponents can help forces prepare for the dizzying pace of networked war. Fifth, build in redundancy and resilience. When the Russians jammed Ukrainian communications in year 2022, whole units lost command and control. The Armata network was designed to reroute and self-heal, with every vehicle able to act as a relay. Western armies must plan for cyber attack, jamming, and loss of connectivity, not just as possibilities, but as certainties. Sixth, foster a culture of innovation from the top down. The German Army's early tank crews in World War II were empowered to improvise and adapt, what they called Auftragstaktik, or mission command. Today, this means trusting young officers, letting them experiment with new tech, and rewarding those who challenge old assumptions. Seventh, ensure civilian oversight and ethical controls. The more autonomous warfare becomes, the more risk there is of accidents, escalation, and moral hazard. Legislators, technologists, and commanders must work together to create rules of engagement and safeguards for AI-driven systems. Finally, never forget the human factor. For all its digital might, the Armata breakthrough was also a triumph of planning, discipline, and courage. Training, cohesion, and leadership still matter. Machines can win battles, but only people can win wars. History shows that every revolution in warfare produces winners and losers. When Napoleon embraced mass conscription, he swept away the old aristocratic armies. When the Allies unleashed radar and code-breaking in World War II, they leapt ahead of Axis powers stuck in tradition. The T-14 Armata's debut is another inflection point. The question now is, which nations, which commanders, and which societies will step up to meet the challenge? Will they cling to the icons of the past, or build the networks, doctrines, and mindsets that the future demands? The answer will be written not just in the next battle, but in the choices made today, in every budget, every war game, every training session, and every act of imagination and will. The curtain has risen on a new era. The clock is ticking. Will you adapt in time? Or will you become the next cautionary tale? Another army remembered only for the moment its old certainties dissolved in the face of the unexpected. The Armata has shown the way. The rest is up to us.